If you've ever felt the ground shift under your feet when someone from your past suddenly appears, then you'll understand what happened to me that afternoon. A hotel lobby, a voice I thought I knew, and a moment that changed far more than I expected. Before we begin, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. It truly helps. Now let me take you back to the moment it all began. I had flown in the night before, still tired from the long layover, and the kind of week that leaves you wondering if you've misplaced pieces of yourself somewhere along the way. The hotel lobby was unusually peaceful for a place that held so many travelers. Warm lights glowed against polished floors, and a faint scent of brewed coffee drifted from the small cafe tucked into the corner. I had just settled onto one of the oversized chairs, the kind that feels like it's trying to hug you, when I heard someone say my name. Not loudly, not urgently, just a quiet tremor in the voice, as if the speaker wasn't entirely sure they should be saying it at all. I looked up, and there he was, my brother, the last person I expected to see. He stood near the entrance, shoulders slightly raised, his travel coat still unbuttoned. His voice wasn't shaking because he was afraid. I knew him well enough to see that. It was something else, a mixture of surprise, relief, and maybe a kind of worry that comes from too much time and too many unspoken conversations. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world around us kept going. Luggage wheels clicking across tile, a child laughing near the elevator, the soft hum of the lobby's air system. And there we stood, staring like we were meeting for the first time instead of reconnecting after years of letting distance do most of the talking. I rose slowly, unsure how to greet him. We had never been a family who handled sudden emotion gracefully, but he stepped forward first, his hands slightly out as if trying to bridge the gap between the years we'd let stretch out. His eyes looked tired, the kind of tired that isn't physical. "I didn't think you'd actually be here," he said, and the tremble in his voice grew more noticeable. I felt something inside me shift. Not sharp, not painful, just a quiet turn, like a page being flipped before you're sure you're ready. "Well," I replied, "I didn't think you'd come looking." He gave a small laugh, though it didn't hide everything underneath it. The space between us finally closed, and we stood facing each other, two people who once knew every detail of each other's lives and now barely knew where to begin. The lobby suddenly felt warmer, as if its lights had drawn closer, softening the edges of everything. I noticed the way he kept glancing at my luggage, at my shoes, at anything that wasn't my eyes. It made me realize he was nervous too. "Can we sit?" he asked. I nodded, and together we walked back to the oversized chairs. I could see the faint tremble in his hands now, not from fear, but from the weight of what he might have come to say. I didn't know yet that this moment would carve a new path for both of us, that it would lead to conversations we had avoided for far too long. But I felt something important forming, like a bridge slowly lowering between two cliffs. And as we sat down, the quiet in his breathing told me that whatever brought him here mattered deeply. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I knew I had to listen. The moment we sat down, I realized how long it had been since we'd shared the same space without rushing through a holiday dinner or exchanging polite messages over the phone. The chair across from me framed him in warm lamplight, and for the first time in years, he looked less like the older brother I had tucked into childhood memories, and more like a man carrying the weight of his own story. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, fingers intertwined as if he were holding on to something fragile. I waited, letting the quiet settle between us. The lobby's gentle background noises made it easier. Soft conversations, clinking dishes, the rolling of suitcases. All of it felt like a blanket we could hide behind while searching for the right words. "I didn't know how else to reach you," he finally said. His eyes met mine for a brief second before shifting away again. "You always answer texts politely, but it's not the same. I figured if I didn't come in person, I might never get the chance." I breathed in slowly. You could have told me you were coming. He gave a small shrug. I didn't want to give you a reason to cancel. That stung a little, not because he was wrong, but because there had been a time when he didn't doubt my willingness to show up for him. Life has a way of drifting people apart quietly, like a tide receding before anyone notices. What did you want to tell me? I asked. His hands tightened. It's not just one thing. It's a lot of small things that turned into something big. He paused, gathering himself. I guess I've been thinking about how we grew apart, how we let it happen. And now, I'm not sure how to fix it. The sincerity in his voice settled into me, heavy but warm. I hadn't expected this. I thought maybe he needed help with paperwork, or family news, or something to do with Mom's old house. But this was different. This was him stepping into a place we both avoided. I looked at him closely. There were faint lines around his eyes I hadn't seen before, and his hair had more gray than I remembered. He looked older, yes, but also more open, more willing to be honest. I missed you, I said quietly. The words surprised even me. I hadn't planned them. They simply arrived, truthful and unpolished. He smiled, though it trembled at the edges. I missed you too. For a moment we just sat there, letting the truth breathe between us. I noticed a couple walking past us toward the elevators, speaking in soft laughter, and something about their easy companionship made me realize how long it had been since I felt close to someone in my own family. Do you remember that summer at the lake? He asked suddenly. The old cabin, the one that smelled like pine and dust? I nodded. We tried to fix the broken dock. We made it worse. He laughed, really laughed this time, and the sound loosened something inside me. He seemed lighter for a moment, as if recalling a version of us untouched by life's heavier years. I've been thinking about that summer a lot, he continued. Back then we were a team, even when we messed things up. I felt a warmth grow in my chest, a reminder of the trust we used to have. Maybe we can still be, I said. He looked at me fully then, no hesitation. I'd like that. A long silence followed, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like standing at the beginning of a road we had avoided for too long, knowing there was still time to walk it together if we chose to. As the elevator chimed somewhere behind us and new guests entered the lobby with the smell of cold evening air clinging to their coats, I sensed something shifting. Not dramatically, not like a door slamming open. More like a gentle turning of a key, unlocking a room we both forgot we needed. He took a breath. There's something else I need to tell you. Something important. But I don't want to overwhelm you on the first minute. I felt my pulse quicken slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. Whatever he carried, whatever had brought him all this way, was still waiting behind his steady gaze. I'm listening, I said. But he shook his head. Let's take it one step at a time. I just needed you to know I'm here. Really here. And somehow, that was enough for now. We stayed there a while longer, letting the quiet moments stitch themselves into something sturdier than the years that had pulled us apart. The lobby lights dimmed slightly as evening settled in, casting soft shadows across the patterned carpet. People came and went, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like my brother and I were standing still in the same moment. Do you want to walk for a bit? He asked. There's a small courtyard behind the hotel. It might be easier to talk without all the noise. I nodded, and we rose together. As we stepped through the glass doors into the courtyard, the air felt crisp and gentle, carrying the faint smell of wet earth from a recent drizzle. Small garden lights lined the path, their glow warm against the growing darkness. A fountain in the center bubbled softly, almost like a steady heartbeat. We walked side by side, not touching, not rushing, just moving with the kind of quiet understanding we used to have when we were young. I could feel him gathering his thoughts, the way he used to before sharing something he felt deeply. "I didn't come just to talk about the past," he finally said. "There's more to it, something I've been carrying for a while." I slowed, turning toward him. His shoulders lifted slightly with a breath, his eyes searching the ground before meeting mine. "I've been struggling," he said, "not with work or money or anything like that. It's more, the feeling that I've drifted too far from the people who matter. From you." His voice didn't shake the way it had in the lobby, but it held something even more vulnerable, an honesty that didn't need volume to be heard. "I thought you drifted because you wanted to," I replied softly. He shook his head. "I didn't know how to stay close without reminding myself of things I didn't know how to face. When Dad passed, you were so composed. You handled everything. And I pulled away because I thought maybe you didn't need me, or maybe I didn't deserve to be part of your life the way I once was." The words settled heavily, like stones dropped gently into water. I remembered those weeks after Dad's passing, how I had pushed through the arrangements, sorting out paperwork, making decisions. I had mistaken his distance as indifference, never realizing it was his own quiet grief. "I always needed you," I said. "I just thought you needed space." His expression shifted, softening, as if a weight he'd carried alone began to lift in the shared air between us. We reached the fountain and paused. Water glimmered under the lights, casting ripples of gold across his face. He looked older, yes, but also more open than I'd seen him in a long time. "There's something else," he said, hesitating. "A reason I wanted to find you today, not next week, not next month." The courtyard felt still, as if the night itself waited for him to continue. "I'm leaving my job," he said after a moment. "I need a reset, a chance to rebuild the parts of my life I pushed aside, and I want you to be part of that, if you'll let me." I felt a warmth rise in my chest, not dramatic, but steady like the slow lighting of a lantern. "Why tell me here?" I asked. He glanced toward the hotel windows, glowing softly behind us. "Because this was the place I saw you for the first time in years, and something about that moment, it made me realize how much I didn't want to lose you again. For the first time in a long while, I felt a tug of hope, the kind that grows quietly without fanfare." "I don't want to lose you either," I said. We stood together by the fountain, listening to its gentle rhythm. The distance between us felt smaller, the years of silence thinning just enough for something new to take its place. He smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile that reminded me of the brother I once knew. "Then maybe this is our chance," he said. And I realized he was right. Something was beginning, something cautious, honest, and unexpectedly healing. The night air felt calmer as we lingered by the fountain, the soft glow of the courtyard lights reflecting gently off the water. I could hear distant traffic beyond the hotel walls, a reminder that life continued on its steady track, even while ours was quietly shifting. My brother stood beside me, hands in his pockets, looking more at peace than he had when he first walked into the lobby. It was as if speaking the truth had given him room to breathe again. We started walking slowly along the path, our steps naturally falling into rhythm. It reminded me of the long walks we used to take as kids, when we didn't need reasons or explanations, just the comfort of being near each other. There was something reassuring about returning to that feeling, even after years of distance. "I keep thinking," he said, his voice low but steady, "about how many moments I missed. Birthdays, holidays, things I should have been there for. I can't get those back." I paused, letting his words settle. "We can't change what's already behind us," I replied, "but we can choose what comes next. That's still ours." He nodded thoughtfully, his gaze drifting toward the fountain behind us. "I want to try, to be better at staying connected, not in big dramatic ways, just consistently." The sincerity in his voice felt grounding. I sensed a shift in myself too, a softening I didn't expect. All the old disappointment I carried had quietly loosened its grip, replaced by something far calmer. "You don't have to prove anything," I said. "You just have to show up." He gave a small, grateful smile. "I can do that." We reached a wooden bench along the path and sat down, the air cool enough to make the moment feel crisp and clear. A few hotel guests passed through the courtyard, speaking softly, their footsteps blending with the trickling of the fountain. Everything around us seemed peaceful, almost like the world was giving us space to rebuild. "I wanted to ask you something," he said after a moment. "When you look back, was there a moment where you felt we lost our way? A moment you wish we could redo?" I thought about it carefully, not with regret, but with the kind of calm reflection that comes with age. I don't think it was one moment. I think it happened slowly, in the little pauses we never filled with conversation. Life got busy. We assumed we'd always have time to catch up later. He exhaled, the breath leaving him in a long, slow stream. "And suddenly, later becomes years." "Yes," I said, "but the important thing is, we are here now." He looked at me with a warmth I hadn't seen in a long time. "I'm glad you came to this hotel," he said softly. "I'm glad you came looking," I replied. We fell into a gentle silence, the kind that feels comfortable rather than empty. I realized that what mattered most wasn't fixing the past. It was acknowledging it, understanding it, and letting it guide us toward something better. Eventually he stood, offering his hand to help me up in a familiar, almost protective gesture he probably didn't even notice he still had. As we walked back toward the lobby doors, I felt a steadiness growing between us, like the foundation of something new and carefully built. Inside, the lobby lights were warmer than before, or maybe it was simply that we were seeing them through a clearer lens. We stopped near the entrance, neither of us rushing to say goodbye. "So," he said, "can we make a plan? Maybe start small. A phone call this week. Dinner next month. Just something consistent." I smiled. "Yes, I'd like that." His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time since he'd said my name across the lobby, I saw the brother I remembered, the one who laughed easily, who always tried, even when he wasn't sure how. As he walked toward the exit, he looked back once more. "Thank you for listening," he said. "I didn't realize how much I needed this." "You're not the only one," I replied. Then he stepped out into the night, and I stood for a moment, letting the warmth of the evening settle around me. Something inside me felt lighter, like a long-held breath finally released. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't sudden, but it was real. And it marked the beginning of something I hadn't expected to find in a hotel lobby, a chance to rediscover someone who had always mattered.